This is Under Review, the show that talks about Colorado sports with a sprinkling of national sports stories as well. I'm Jordan Long. We're going to start the show off with the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal fired head coach Dominique Ducharme on February 9th, 2022. He took over for Claude Julien in the 2020-21 season last year. Now, when they fired Claude Julien, the Canadiens stood at 9 wins, 5 losses, and 4 overtime losses. Now, you have to remember that the NHL last year only played 56 games within the division. While Dominique Ducharme was the spark they needed, he went 15 wins, 16 losses, and 7 overtime losses the rest of the way. The Canadiens ended up with 24 wins, 21 losses, and 11 overtime losses for 59 points. They ended up going to the playoffs and advanced to the Stanley Cup final. Unfortunately, they lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning in 5 games, but at least they got to the Stanley Cup final. This season, the expectations were to earn a playoff spot to show last year wasn't a fluke. Well, last year was a fluke. They started the year at 8 wins, 30 losses, and 7 overtime losses, and fired Dominique Ducharme on February 9th, 2022. The thing is, though, that was way too late to fire Dominique Ducharme. It was already a lost season at that point. Montreal decided the interim head coach the rest of the way would be Martin St. Louis. The thing about Martin St. Louis, great player in his NHL days, but didn't have experience as a head coach. He played in the league from 1998 to 2015, playing for the New York Rangers, Calgary Flames, and the Tampa Bay Lightning. With Martin St. Louis behind the bench, Montreal went 14 wins, 19 losses, and 4 overtime losses the rest of the way. So did they really play better hockey under Martin St. Louis? Well, not really. They finished the year with a record of 22 wins, 49 losses, and 11 overtime losses for a total of 55 points. The worst in the NHL. Looking at their stats, offensively, they struggled. They scored 2.66 goals per game, 27th in the NHL. Their power play was the second worst in the NHL to the Philadelphia Flyers. The Flyers' power play, they scored on 12.6% of their opportunities. The Montreal Canadiens scored on 13.7% of their opportunities. That's not great. Couldn't score at all. On defense, they couldn't stop anybody from scoring, giving up 3.87 goals per game, the worst in the NHL. Their power play kill was 27th in the league at 75.6%. So, they killed off 75.6% of the penalties they took. So you add all this up, and the Montreal Canadiens weren't a great team. Martin St. Louis didn't improve all this, but Montreal decided, you know what? Forget the results. We're going to give you a 3-year deal. I don't get this move at all. The reason is Martin St. Louis had his chance to show the franchise and the front office of the Montreal Canadiens he could coach this team and failed. Why didn't they go out and start a coaching search? Montreal is one of the hardest places, pretty much all of Canada is, but especially Montreal, especially in the NHL, because that franchise wants a Stanley Cup year in and year out, and that's what the fans want as well. So there's one coach that might have made sense to coach the Montreal Canadiens. In fact, he coached in Canada at one point with the Toronto Maple Leafs, Mike Babcock. He also coached for the Anaheim Ducks and Detroit Red Wings. Babcock's overall record in the NHL, so if you look at his stats, his overall record is 700 wins, 418 losses, 19 ties, and 164 overtime losses. This includes 14 playoff appearances with his teams. And oh, by the way, three trips to the Stanley Cup final Oh, and he has one Stanley Cup ring. It would have made sense. Mike Babcock, though, hasn't coached since the 2019-2020 season with the Maple Leafs. He was let go 23 games into the year, and Toronto was 9 wins, 10 losses, and 4 overtime losses. If not, look at John Tortorella. I know John Tortorella is one of the hardest-nosed hockey coaches in the NHL, but at least he has experience with the New York Rangers, Tampa Bay Lightning, and Columbus Blue Jackets. His record is 673 wins, 541 losses, 37 ties, and 132 overtime losses. He also coached his teams to the playoffs 12 times, and oh, by the way, won a Stanley Cup in 2004 with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Both of these guys, Mike Babcock and John Tortorella, would have made more sense than Martin St. Louis, though Montreal is going with Martin St. Louis, and it's a risk. The deal is 3 years, but if the results aren't there, he will be gone. Montreal hasn't won the Cup since 1993. Anyone know who their head coach, who their goaltender was at the time? Well, if you guess Patrick Roy, you would be correct. They are hoping to end that drought. I don't know if he will get them there. I don't like the shot, but at least he gets his opportunity. Hopefully it works out for Montreal. We're going to move on to the NBA. I know the finals actually started last night as Boston won that game, but I'm not here to talk about that. It's Quin Snyder's future in Utah is murky. Snyder has 2 years remaining on his current contract. Now Utah is trying to extend him, but talks haven't really worked out yet. Snyder is really mulling if he wants to come back. He should want to at least for this upcoming year. Of course, if talks break down, he may call it quits. Looking at Quin Snyder, though, it makes a lot of sense for him to want to keep coaching this Utah Jazz team. His overall record is 372 wins, 264 losses, a winning percentage of .585. He has gone to the playoffs with Utah for the 6th straight year. So you're looking at 6 straight years of playoff games for the Utah Jazz. I know he hasn't gone to a Western Conference final, but at least he got them there and they are playing meaningful games. What more do you want? The problem, and this is not on Quin Snyder, but it's the front office's job to figure out the beef between Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. They don't want to play with each other. Donovan Mitchell is one of the best shooting guards in the league. He had 25.9 points per game last season. Rudy Gobert is the Jazz center, and he's one of the better defenders in the game at the center position. He is not the best center in the league. I will take Joel Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Nikola Jokic over him. But Gobert grabbed 14.7 rebounds per game, which led the league this season. Of those rebounds, 11 came on the defensive end. Gobert also blocked 2.1 shots per game this year. Offensively, 3.7 offensive rebounds and scored 15.6 points per game. There's some beef with these two-star players. I don't really understand, but they both won out if both are on the roster. They cannot coexist. Now, for the Jazz, they have to trade either one of them. Mitchell has 3 years left. The salary is large. It's $30.35 million next year. So you're looking at the 2023 season. But in the 2023-24 season, it's $32.6 million. And in the 2023-2024 season, that goes up to $34.848 million. Gobert's salary isn't easier to trade at all. He's owed $38.172 this upcoming season. In 2023-2024, that's $41 million. and 2024, 2025. So 2024, the 2025 season, Gobert's salary is $43.8 million. How do you move either one of them when they are making millions of dollars, especially if you look at Gobert in the 2024-2025 season at $43.8 million? It will be hard, but I think if you move one, you have to move Gobert. I know Rudy Gobert is a great defender, but you want a shooter and a scorer, and that is what Mitchell is. He shoots the ball and puts points up on the scoreboard. Once that is resolved, then they can figure out Quin Snyder's contract. Quin Snyder should still want to coach. Snyder hasn't decided that he wants to leave Utah, but let's just say he decides to. He would be in high demand because of his record. The thing is, though, Charlotte is the only place that is still looking for a head coach. I think if your options are Charlotte or Utah, you stay in Utah. Coach out your contract. You have 2 years left. Unless you want a different challenge, then maybe quit. If he does resign, which I don't think will happen, he should take the year off. Use the lessons learned in Utah to your next job. Plus, waiting a year, there could be more NBA jobs to choose from than just Charlotte. I know Charlotte's the only job open, and that is not a bad job. I just think it seems like he wants a better job, and for him to wait makes more sense if he resigns. Now, there's no decision on Quin Snyder's future because he still has 2 years left on his current contract. Wait and see how the following weeks go, especially since we are into the offseason. Even though the NBA Finals are going on right now, every other team in the league, except for the Golden State Warriors and Boston Celtics, are in the offseason. So for Quin Snyder, just relax, wait and see what happens. Just figure out what you want to do first, but definitely coach out your next 2 years or at least next year. For the front office, figure out who you want to keep between Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. That issue needs to be resolved. If not, it's going to go into the regular season, and that will not be good. We will turn our attention to the Colorado Rockies. June for any baseball team is when you figure out if you're going to be a playoff team or looking at next year. One could argue July, post All-Star break will do that, but for the Rockies, it's June. I have said it on this show before that the Rockies play great baseball in April. By May, they start to struggle, and the month that they kiss their playoff hopes goodbye is this month when it turns to June. I don't know why that happens, but it does. By the middle of July and August, I am worried about the Denver Broncos. Why? Well, training camp opens up, and I'm looking at position battles. By August, it's preseason games. Of course, there is baseball in September, but if the Rockies are way out of a wild card race and the National West Division race, I'm watching the NFL football, the Denver Broncos, as well as the best channel ever, NFL Red Zone. All these stats that I'm about to tell you are going into tonight's game against the Atlanta Braves. Looking at the Rockies, they stand at 23-28, 5 games below 500, which is what I would take right now. But the problem is they're 11 games behind the LA Dodgers for first place in the NL West Division. If you look at the Rockies, the offense isn't the problem. They have the best batting average in baseball at .267. The Rockies are having timely hits, but what concerns me is they're not hitting home runs. 48 total, 19th in Major League Baseball. So offensively, they are doing what they need to do other than driving the ball over the wall. Pitching is the main question mark going into this season. I know I have said it before, especially on the show. You can have all the offense in the world, but you need pitching. The Rockies pitching has been the reason they have struggled. And I do not blame the manager, Bud Black. It's not his fault that the front office didn't get him help in the pitching. They didn't go out and get any pitchers. Anyway, the Rockies have struggled. Their team ERA is 5.34, second worst in baseball. Only the Cincinnati Reds is worse at 5.37. It seems like I'm repeating myself once again. Bud Black can't trust the starters. They go into games and give up runs. Looking at their starters, this is why he can't trust them. Their ERA is 5.37. That will not get the job done. I have said it before. Manager Bud Black, and this is on him, he waits too long to change pitchers. That has been the case so far this year. The bullpen, though, he can't trust it either. The bullpen has struggled. Their ERA is last in Major League Baseball at 5.28. The way the season is going right now, it has to change this month. If they struggle, and it looks like they might, they're looking at another long season. It will not be the playoffs. Colorado hasn't earned a playoff spot since 2018. It seems like right now, by August, I'm going to care more about position battles and preseason games for the Denver Broncos. At least there's time for the Colorado Rockies to turn their season around, but I just don't see it. I'm going to be worried more about the Denver Broncos in August and then, of course, regular season in September. We are going to end the show with Bradley Chubb of the Denver Broncos. He's a linebacker. The Denver Broncos are in OTAs, which are off-season team activities. They've been practicing and meeting as a team at the Broncos facility at Dove Valley. Now, to me, there is one player who needs to step up his game, linebacker Bradley Chubb. Now, Chubb is in the last year of his rookie deal, and this will be his fifth season with the Denver Broncos and the end of his rookie deal. Now, I like the draft pick back in 2018, fifth overall by the Denver Broncos to get Bradley Chubb. He played his college football at NC State. In 4 years for NC State, Chubb had 25 sacks, 100 tackles, and of those 100 tackles, 54 and a half were for a loss. He was a can't-miss player. Denver thought they would have Batman and Robin with Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. We know Von Miller got traded in the offseason to the LA Rams and signed a 6-year deal with the Buffalo Bills in the offseason. Anyway, Chubb's rookie season was one of the best in Broncos history. He had 12 sacks. Now I'm watching him play that rookie season, which was 2018, thinking we have a stud linebacker. He played in all 16 games and had 12 sacks. What more could you ask for? He had 60 tackles and 2 forced fumbles. Well, in 2019, he played in 4 games because he got hurt in Week 4's loss against the Jacksonville Jaguars, which Denver lost 26-24. He left the game with 14 minutes left. Now, I didn't know at the time how bad his injury was. It turns out he tore his ACL and ended his season. Before the injury, he had 21 tackles, 1 sack, and 1 forced fumble. In 2019, really, it was a season of what if he didn't get hurt. I think if you look back at it, he might have had 7 to 10 sacks or even more. It could have been double-digit sacks, but we don't know because of that ACL tear. In 2020, back from the torn ACL, Chubb was looking great. I mean, he played in 14 games, which I know is 2 less than his rookie year, but he was still making plays. He had 42 tackles and 7.5 sacks. I will take those stats from Bradley Chubb any year. 7.5 sacks is pretty good. This was looking like Chubb was back to being 100%. 2021, he was going to make an impact, and the Broncos in that offseason actually gave him a 5th-year option on his rookie deal. This actually meant he would be with the Denver Broncos in 2021 and 2022 before hitting free agency in 2023. The Broncos had confidence in him. Again, the injury bug hit him. He appeared in 7 games last year. So you're looking at the 7 games. The reason why he only played in 7 was because he had surgery to correct a bone spur in his left ankle. That kept him out most of the year. Even so, Chubb didn't look like himself, and he was a step slower and couldn't make the plays. He had 21 tackles and didn't have a sack. That's what concerns me, is he didn't have a sack. It made me wonder how much the injury impacted Chubb's play. Going into this year, Chubb has not had his contract extended. In fact, I haven't heard if they're going to extend him or if they even have talked to him. Who knows? That will be taken care of by the Denver Broncos and by Chubb's play. This is a make it or break it year for Bradley Chubb. He hasn't played a full season since 2018, his rookie year in 2018. Prove to the Denver Broncos you can last a full season. Chubb must show he can sack the quarterback. In his career, he has done that 20 and a half times, but not last year. The thing for Chubb is he's not only playing for the Denver Broncos, but the rest of the NFL. The reason why I'm saying that is because his contract is up after this year. Let's just say the Broncos don't re-sign him. Well, other franchises are going to look at his tape and scout him to say, yes, that is a linebacker that we want on this team. He could be the difference on a team's defense. For Chubb, though, there's a lot for him to show this year. A big season, he could end up with a big payday, even if it's not with the Denver Broncos. Another injury-prone year, if he's hurt and is on the sidelines, he will be lucky to be on an NFL roster. If you look at the training camp and NFL preseason, this is a huge year for Bradley Chubb. He needs to show that he is healthy. If not, you're looking at maybe getting rid of Bradley Chubb. I'm glad George Paton, the Broncos general manager, has not agreed to a contract extension with him yet, because you don't know how healthy he really is. The Broncos need to see the Chubb from 2018 or even 2020. The reason why I say 2018 or 2020, because he was actually healthy. He needs to be healthy enough to make plays for this Denver Broncos defense. If he isn't, and he has to sit out most of preseason or training camp, that is not a good sign. Chubb knows this, but apparently in OTAs, off-season team activities, he's actually looking pretty good, but we will have to wait and see. The Broncos know they need the 2018 or 2020 version of Bradley Chubb. If they get that type of player, the Broncos will keep him beyond this contract, and who knows how many more seasons. Bradley Chubb would love nothing better than to play well for the Denver Broncos and earn a contract while helping them actually end their playoff drought. They haven't been to the playoffs since they won Super Bowl 50. Hopefully, Bradley Chubb can help the Broncos end their drought. Once training camp opens up, there will be a lot of pressure on him. He just needs to stay on the field to show what he can do. Standing on the sidelines will not do Chubb any good. That is not proving to the Denver Broncos you can play. I'm Jordan Long. This has been Under Review. Read my blog that I write Mondays through Thursdays with podcasts on Fridays at sports-scoop.com. Check out all the shows on the Sideline Sports Network on our YouTube. And basically, please subscribe to our YouTube because we have shows every single day. So please subscribe to watch all of them. This has been a Sideline Sports production.